The opinions expressed by the host and guests in this show are not necessarily the views of Children's Health Defense.
Good morning, CHD. It's Sunday, the 21st of December, 2025. Welcome to This Week with Mary Holland, President and CEO of Children's Health Defense, and myself, Polly Tommey. Well, Mary, another amazing week. Let's get straight on with it. So in the Defender, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. cancels millions in grants to AAP. The AAP is the American Academy of Pediatrics, as battle heats up between health officials and pediatric group. US Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. announced millions in funding cuts to the AAP on the same day lawyers for the pediatric trade group defended their lawsuit against Kennedy in a Boston court. The Washington Post said the AAP lost the funding after criticizing Robert F. Kennedy Jr. HHS said the agency cancelled their grants because they no longer align with their department's missions or priorities. This, to me, is the most exciting news ever. Can't stand the AAP.
Yeah, I'm with you. This is super exciting. It's not a personal vendetta. They're totally not aligned with what the Secretary and HHS are doing right now, which is to move away from all of these vaccines on the schedule, to move away from having the first line of treatment for obesity in kids to be Ozempic and Wegovy, and to move away from so-called gender-affirming care. So they're not aligned. That's obvious. AAP is suing Kennedy anyway. So this is just sort of having this feud, if you will, be out in the open. AAP is completely not aligned with what Kennedy is doing and seeking to do by restoring transparency and real science behind what we're doing, especially for kids' health.
But isn't also AAP funded by Big Pharma?
Oh, completely. I mean, they live on money from Big Pharma and the government. So by the government now cutting out about $20 million, it is going to lower the money that they get. I gather that pharma will just increase what they give. But I believe, as I'm quoted in this article, Polly, saying it's a front group for pharma. AAP and American Medical Association, they are front groups for the pharmaceutical industry. Sadly, they are not independent medical advice. An independent group is the American Association of Physicians and Surgeons, and Jane Orient is quoted here, and that is an independent doctors group that's not funded by pharma, and they're completely in favor of this. So this is good. This is good news, Polly. Very good.
Very exciting. The Defender, Children's Health Defense, sues Department of Defense over sham religious exemption policies. The lawsuit accuses the US military of enforcing a two-part strategy to deny virtually all religious accommodation requests from service members and recruits. Children's Health Defense alleges the military's policy for granting religious exemptions to recruits is ambiguous. For acting service members, the process for obtaining a religious exemption from vaccines is a sham and largely theatre. I'm so excited this is happening. Long time coming.
Yeah, this is a great necessary effort. The process, as we know, Polly, from all the COVID religious exemptions that were denied, was essentially a sham, but it's more general than that. And this is what this is getting at on behalf of our military chapter, is that people who are applying to be in the military, if they're unvaccinated, there's virtually no path, which is tragic because the military needs good recruits. And then people who are in the military based on the First Amendment, based on the Religious Freedom Restoration Act, based on the Administrative Procedures Act, they should be able to get religious exemptions. That's what the law is. They should be able to access both religious and medical exemptions when necessary. And they're not really able to do that. So this is going to be a very, very interesting one to follow. I'm delighted that we're bringing that case.
Well, our legal team is on fire because we have the next article now. Brenda Belletti in the Defender. Children's Health Defense sues New York in bid to restore religious exemptions. The lawsuit comes 1 week after US Supreme Court favorable ruling in another religious exemption case. Attorneys for Children's Health Defense and other plaintiffs, 7 parents and 9 children, said last week's Supreme Court ruling signaled strong support for parents' rights to direct their children's religious upbringing?
There have been some big changes in the last year in terms of the law, Polly, from the Supreme Court. So last June, there was a decision called Mahmoud v. Taylor that said that parents can take their kids out of classes teaching LGBTQ curricula if it violates parents' religious beliefs. It doesn't make sense that parents have rights that stop at the classroom door. They said it's insulting that you can't control religious upbringing in the schools. And so based on that, in a ruling last week, the Supreme Court said to the Second Circuit, which covers New York, in a case about religious exemptions on behalf of Amish children in Amish schools and on behalf of the schools who were being penalized because they weren't checking on immunization records. The court said, take it back, Second Circuit, and look at the Miller decision in light of Mahmoud. Go back and reevaluate your decision. So what that signaled to us is that the Supreme Court is now saying that parental religious rights are burdened when religious exemptions are not recognized. And courts have to apply what's called strict scrutiny. The courts have to ensure that the government is using the least restrictive means possible to burden those fundamental rights. And that's going to be very hard for New York State to show. So this is an important case. Sarah Doe, whom we talked about before, who got back into school after the courts forced the school to acknowledge her medical exemption. She's one of the plaintiffs in this case with with 8 other children. Some of these stories, Polly, are so touching and moving. I mean, there's a girl who's going to be thrown out of school in January because her medical exemption will no longer be valid. There's a boy with Down syndrome who's literally losing his vision. They wouldn't accept his medical exemption. They wouldn't accept his religious exemption based on the change in the law in 2019. And he's going blind because he can't get vision services that he would otherwise have access to in public school. So it's a very compelling case, and we will be following it closely. Kudos to Sujata Gibson on this one and Rick Jaffe on the case against the Department of Defense. We are trying to enforce the First Amendment. Free exercise of religion is in the First Amendment to the Constitution. It needs to be realized. It needs to be realizable.
And thank you to the public for your donations, because we can't do this without you. And so we're so grateful to you all.
We know we had a Zoom call earlier this week, Polly, where nearly 500 people showed up to talk about what's going on in New York. We know that you support our work to get back religious exemptions across the country. It is a first step towards full freedom when it comes to medical health and medical decision making. So thank you for your support.
Yeah, the power of the people, for sure. Defender again, Michigan lawmakers push 11 bills to make vaccine exemptions harder for families, give state more power over mandates. The 11-bill package would require parents to use a form provided by the state health department to apply for vaccine exemptions. In what one health freedom advocate described as a huge power grab, one of the bills would allow the state health department to set vaccine policies by considering not only CDC recommendations, but also recommendations by groups like the American Academy of Pediatrics.
I was just saying, this issue about vaccination and whose decision it is becoming a truly flashpoint issue in the partisan divide in this country. Blue states are moving to no longer recognize the recommendations of the Centers for Disease Control under Secretary Kennedy, and red states are moving towards religious freedom when it comes to vaccines. And so this partisan divide is, to me, Polly, it's bizarre that it should be over children's health and vaccination, but it is becoming a real divide. And this really is about state power. And I think it's the blue states that are trying to increase state power around vaccination and declaring emergencies and following pharma. And it's the red states that are actually diminishing state power and enforcing individual rights.
West Virginia Supreme Court to review religious exemption case. The state's highest court granted the West Virginia Department of Education's motion for an expedited review of a November the 26th ruling in favor of parents seeking religious exemptions for their children. Parents sued the Department of enforcing vaccine mandates in defiance of Governor Patrick Morrisey's January executive order. requiring schools to allow religious and philosophical exemptions.
Polly, you'll remember that when Governor Morrissey was inaugurated in January of 2025, on his first day in office, he issued an executive order recognizing religious exemptions. West Virginia is the only state in the country that has never had a religious exemption. And it's been hard fought. I went to visit West Virginia more than 10 years ago to speak to the legislature about the importance of having a religious exemption. So this has now been going back and forth in the courts. They've recognized the religious exemption by the court, and then that's been retracted by the higher court, and then it's been challenged. And so what this article explains is that by June, all of the documents will have been supplied to the Supreme Court of West Virginia. And at that point, June 2026, the court will be in a position to render a final decision about the restoration of religious exemption rights to West Virginia. That's going to be a very important high court decision, Polly, based on a lot of litigation over this last year. So that's going to be important because this issue is ultimately going to have to be resolved by the U.S. Supreme Court. And, you know, what we just talked about, the Mahmoud, was not about vaccines, but the Miller case, where the Supreme Court granted certiorari, meaning they took the case, they sent it back down, they vacated the Second Circuit's decision, and they remanded it to the Second Circuit. So the Supreme Court already has this Amish schools case before it relating to religious exemptions. And this West Virginia Supreme Court decision is going to be one that likely is going to be appealed to the Supreme Court as well. So this issue is coming to a head, Polly. I hope it's resolved by 2026. We'll see, but it's coming to a head. It's going to have to be resolved at the Supreme Court, federal or congressional level in the very near future.
Well, and another one here, Defender, New York teachers vow to keep fighting after Supreme Court turns down religious exemptions.
This is a case that we brought in 2021, Polly. We were supporting now our director of advocacy, Michael Cain, but he was at the time a fired teacher in New York City because he would not accept the COVID jab. And basically, in New York City, it employed blatant discrimination, saying, oh, we'll give religious exemptions to Jehovah's Witnesses, but we won't give them to Catholics. We won't give them to Buddhists because the Pope says that vaccines are good. That's not how the First Amendment works. It works based on your deepest, most sacred convictions. It's not about denominational discrimination, as is explained here. So the Supreme Court rejected the case, or they denied what's called certiorari. There are still state cases in New York on behalf of the workers who were fired illegitimately, and we're still hopeful that they may be reinstated and get back pay. And they are moving forward in state cases to Capua. It was a long shot to get to the Supreme Court, but in other words, the pressure is on the Supreme Court, Polly. They are going to have to take a definitive case and rule on this issue of, like, what is a religious exemption? What's the process that's required? What's legitimate? What's not? We just brought this DOD case. We brought another case against New York. There's the West Virginia case. There's the Miller versus McDonald case. The pressure is on, and it's not going to abate.
Suzanne Burdick here in The Defender. Pediatrician fired for role as CDC vaccine advisor is unfired next day, wife says. This is Kirk Milhoon, who chairs the CDC Advisory Committee on Immunization Practice, known as ACIP, was reinstated to his pediatric cardiology practice one day after he was fired. Driscoll Children's Hospital fired Milhoon after receiving an overwhelming number of calls for his dismissal following ACIP's December the 5th vote to change its Hep B vaccination recommendation. This is all according to his wife, Dr. Kimberly Milhoon.
Secretary Kennedy moved Martin Kulldorff out of ACIP and asked him to come inside HHS, which he has done. He's an epidemiologist. We covered that, I think, last week. So then Kennedy appointed Kirk Milhoun, a pediatric cardiologist, to chair the Advisory Committee on Immunization Practice. And in that first meeting, they said the Hep B vaccine should no longer be universally recommended. It should be recommended to moms who are Hep B positive, and otherwise it shouldn't be before 2 months. So there's speculation that pharmaceutical companies may have been involved in this, but they fired him immediately from his hospital, right, cutting off his livelihood, and then he's reinstated the next day. I think that's showing us, Polly, that we're getting more powerful, right? The fact that they couldn't really keep that firing, he was unfired, says a lot. And he is now the chair of APA. And he is certainly somebody who spoke out during COVID about everything that was wrong about it.
FDA may slap COVID vaccines with a black box warning, CNN reports. Black box warnings, also called box warnings, are the FDA's most serious warning label, used to indicate that a drug is associated with a serious hazard, often including death or life-threatening reactions. COVID-19 vaccines critics say the warning comes too late and the shots should be pulled from the market. Well, the next article from Suzanne in The Defender is no plans to put black box warning on COVID vaccines, but the FDA will make death reports public. This is FDA Commissioner Marty Makary said that the agency has, again, no plans to do this, despite an internal recommendation to do so. Makary also confirmed that under the Biden administration, the FDA received reports of deaths following the vaccines, but did not make the reports public.
So this is disappointing, Polly. Both these articles cite to Karl Jablonowski at CHD saying that these mRNA COVID shots are unfit for universal distribution and unsafe. Brian Hooker says this is just a wrong decision. Peter McCullough says that there should have been a black box warning in 2021 and they should be off the market. And Makary and colleagues should show greater courage and leadership. Polly, with 38,913 deaths have been reported to the Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting System as of December 5th. It's an outrage that these products are still on the market. I don't necessarily take at full value what Makary is saying. This is sort of a defensive posture right now. Obviously, a lot is going on, including that we filed last week a petition to the FDA saying that they were not properly given biologics license applications and that they should still be emergency use authorization according to the FDA's own rules. And over 101,000 comments have already been submitted to the FDA. So I think we continue to watch this. This story is definitely not over.
Yeah, I have to say, a viewer, thank you to that viewer, sent me some screenshots from a pregnancy group on, I guess, Facebook or something like that. And these women are still getting the COVID shot. And in the pregnancy group, they're writing that they're really sick and they can't feel the babies moving. Like, there's a lot of that going on. It's really desperate that they're still being recommended and being given these COVID shots while they're pregnant.
They're not being recommended to pregnant women. They're not being recommended to babies.
No,
and unfortunately, as we've been talking about, there's this ideological partisan divide over medicine. It's terrible. It's really terrible.
It's terrible. Okay, Defender, they owe us this. Campbell demands release of UK data on the COVID vaccines deaths. This is medical commentator John Campbell accusing the UK's public health watchdog of hiding essential data on deaths related to COVID-19 vaccines, alleging officials are denying the public the only two pieces of information we need to evaluate safety. So, worldwide issue this.
Yeah, good for John Campbell. This is based on an article from the Telegraph where they are trying to get this information, and the government is saying, no, it would cause distress and misinformation. And Campbell says, giving accurate information can lead to misinformation. What form of irrationality is this? He's right. This is outrageous.
Okay, back in the Defender again. Euthanasia on a huge scale. End-of-life drugs drove up COVID fatalities among seniors. John Campbell again said widespread use of palliative drugs on COVID-19 patients suppressed breathing and caused many preventable deaths, especially in the UK care homes. The resulting death toll made COVID-19 appear far deadlier than it was, helping justify sweeping global restrictions, including lockdowns, mass vaccination campaigns, and mask mandates, Campbell said. And that goes right along with Vax Free, our film, our children's health defense film, which is free on CHD TV under the movie section. Exactly the same thing he's talking about.
Absolutely. I highly recommend that people watch Vax 3 about these hospital protocol deaths. And that's really what John Campbell is talking about with Russell Brand. They were called palliative care drugs that are used for end of life, midazolam and morphine, but they were wrongly given. This was killing people without, they did not need these drugs. And then it falsely inflated COVID rates, justifying these outrageous measures. And this article points out, or the interview points out, Polly, that the infection, they were claiming that the COVID infection fatality rate was 24%. In other words, 24% would people get really sick, when in fact it was 0.18%. So the fatality 24%, and it was less than 1%, a lot less than 1%. So, this was a scam. This is, again, another outrage, and kudos to John Campbell for getting it out there.
So this is Dr. Paul Thomas. Many of you saw the interview that we did on CHD TV, and the Defender have written this up beautifully. It's a great article, this, to send to that young mum-to-be. So the headline, Dr. Paul Thomas, Why I Don't Vaccinate Kids and What Parents Should Know. He goes on to say things like, once I saw vaccine injury, I couldn't unsee it. People who receive the Tdap and DTaP are more likely to get whooping cough multiple times. Dr. Thomas advises pregnant women to avoid all vaccination. It's really they've done such a great job of writing up that interview. So please do send that to the mothers-to-be.
Dr. Paul Thomas is such an important person in our movement, Polly, because he was a mainstream pediatrician. He went to Dartmouth Medical School. He vaccinated kids. He lived in Africa, where he, thought that vaccines were essential. And over time, he saw kids regressing from their vaccines. And he said, I've got to stop. And then he did the research, and then he lost his license. So he's, in a sense, the poster child for the progression from being totally pro-vax, making his living vaccinating children, saying, I can't do this because it's harming children. It's causing more harm than good. So again, wonderful that he's sharing this with us, and great that we have this platform through you, Polly.
Okay, the Texas Tribune. This is a weird article. The headline here, blamed for the nation's historic measles outbreak, West Texas Mennonites have hardened their views on vaccines. It goes on about how it killed 2 children again, which they're never going to stop saying that. I don't know why they're saying that, Mary, when we've proved that it hasn't. Then it talks about TV crews, film crews who believed the girls died from negligent hospitals. Well, that has to be us. It's a hit piece, I think.
Well, it's fascinating. It's in the Texas Tribune, Polly. It's a in Texas, and it's basically very pro-vaccine and saying, why don't these stupid people vaccinate? But they also acknowledge that the Mennonite community is not running to vaccinate their children, and that the community itself is saying that this public scrutiny was much worse than the disease. So it's kind of an interesting article that gets some of our narrative and the Mennonite community narrative into the mainstream. So in that sense, it's interesting. But for the most part, it's a pro-vax hit piece.
But it's long. It's a long article. It's gone on forever.
It's a long article. And so if people read it, I think it makes them start to think, wow, this is weird.
Yeah, it was weird. Okay, Michael Nevadakis in the Defender. FDA won't rubber stamp Pfizer mRNA flu vaccine without better safety data. FDA Commissioner Marty Makary told Fox News that the data from Pfizer's recently completed phase 3 clinical trial showed that adults 65 years and older were at a higher risk of several serious adverse events, including kidney failure and acute respiratory failure. We are just not going to rubber stamp new products that don't work, that fail in clinical trials, Makary said. Thank you, Marty Makary.
Yeah, at least they're putting these mRNA flu vaccines on the market. Makary said that they failed in seniors. There were 0 benefits. And as Dr. Merrill Nass, our commentator and friend said, these shots are just, this mRNA platform is just irrevocably flawed. No one has figured out how to make mRNA shots safe. And that's the bottom line, Polly. They just aren't safe. They're not ready for prime time. They're just not.
Okay, the next article is concerning, and we did cover this a little bit on Financial Rebellion on Thursday. It's from Reclaim the Net. US proposes collecting DNA from foreign tourists. The plan would turn routine border screening into a genetic census, redefining what it means to cross a friendly border in the name of security. It does not explain how the DNA collection would be operationalized, stored, shared, or protected from misuse. So there's not really a lot of detail there, but it should concern everybody. That cannot happen.
It's a notice put out by the Department of Homeland Security for comment. There's 60 days of comments. You can find how to do that in this article. Apparently there's 14.5 million people who would be subject to this under a visa waiver program. This is setting a precedent, Polly. The government at the border can collect your DNA, and it would be incredibly invasive. We certainly can't be supporting that. That will be used as a precedent for collecting DNA on everybody. And once a government has that level of knowledge about people, Polly, it's very, very dangerous. It just is.
We've been having Renette Stenham on financial rebellion every Thursday, and she's just been educating us so much on all of this. So if people have missed financial rebellion, you really need, especially this one we just did this last Thursday. She really breaks down and explains, like no one else has done that for me, how this is a very, very serious situation. Federal court consolidates 70+ lawsuits alleging Ozempic and Wegovy cause vision loss. The U.S. Judicial Panel on Multi-District Litigation, that's known as MDL, ordered that all the lawsuits claiming the drugs cause partial or complete blindness be grouped in a new multi-district litigation in the Eastern District of Pennsylvania. The panel rejected Judge Maker's request to combine the eye injury cases into an existing MDL, targeting several gastrointestinal side effects. These drugs are for hell, people. They really are having a terrible effect.
There's lots of cases of people losing their eyesight. There's also cases of people, basically, it's paralyzing their stomachs. It's causing severe harm. I'm glad that they're keeping those issues separate. But as the article points out, tens of millions of people are now using these injections weekly. It's making billions of dollars, but we don't know what the longer term effect. We know that the short term effects are vision loss and gastroparesis. It's so disturbing, Polly. So disturbing.
Really is. Beyond pesticides, in the Defender, rising pediatric cancer rates linked to pesticides and lax regulations. This is a recent study in Nebraska. Found that pesticide mixtures are linked to these higher rates of childhood cancers, including brain, central nervous system, and leukemia cases. Weak enforcement of pesticide and child labor laws, highlighted by California data, leaves children highly vulnerable to toxic exposures.
Apparently, Polly, cancer is now the second most common cause of death in children aged 1 to 14. And this article says, let's just do organic agriculture and use the precautionary principle. We shouldn't be putting things out like Ozempic or some of the pesticides when we don't know what the profile is, or if we do know and we just say, oh, well, too bad for people who get cancer, children who get cancer. It's just, that's why we're here, Polly, is to really push against these toxic exposures for children causing chronic disease. It's just wrong. It's just wrong.
Well, Mary, we've had an extraordinary year, Mary, Polly, on Sunday. It really has been a fantastic year. And I think we need to personally thank the Defender, because the Defender, they work so hard, and they're the articles that bring the truth to you that Mary and I read out.
Absolutely. The Defender does an incredible job, Polly. I'm so proud of them. I'm proud of CHD TV as well. But Defender does a fantastic job telling us the news that we really need to know. And Polly, I'm sure we will do a little review of Mary and Polly for the year, because it has been an amazing year with not only changes at the federal government level, but really things that have been happening through the power of this movement, thanks to your support for it. So yes, overall, it's been a good year. Let's rest up for the holidays, because 2026, Polly, is going to be at least as important a year, if not even more important than 2025. 2025, we were just sort of getting our sea legs. I think Kennedy at HHS was kind of finding his groove, getting his people assembled. 2026 is really go time, because we really don't know where we're going to be in 2027 or 2028.
Right.
It's exciting, and also, stay tuned. We're going to need your attention and involvement and engagement and support. So rest of the holidays. I hope everyone will have a really fantastic holiday, however and wherever you celebrate. And we'll be back in the new year.
We certainly will. I'll be back tomorrow with you all as well. But yes, Mary and Polly, this is our last one of 2025. But we will be back very shortly. in the 2026 with more news for you. So in the meantime, pray big, stand firm, never settle, and much love from Mary and I to you all. Have a wonderful Christmas or whatever it is you celebrate, and we'll see you in the new year.
Next, I'd like to talk about what we see as artificial weather modification in China. So we're seeing both in Beijing in November, in Urumqi in Xinjiang, snow coming down, disrupted roads, stranded vehicles, blizzard conditions, apparently 31 millimeters in 24 hours, trees snapping, and it's acknowledged that it's weather manipulation, Dane. So why would China be overcooling Beijing and Urumqi?
Mainstream media covered that from many different directions. CNN, MSNBC, Popular Mechanics. It's no secret that they're engineering what should have been a liquid precipitation event, rain, into snow. Many different constituents in this. One of those elements are surfactants. Surfactants are what makes soap slippery. They're used in this mix to keep the particles from coagulating, from sticking together, which causes a faster descent time. So thus we have people who think they know how to drive on snow-covered roads that now don't, because literally it's like soap-soaked snow. So, and the avalanche it showed is, to clarify what that is, that avalanche coming down the canyon is just a sign of the melting that's occurring from the Swiss Alps to the Himalayas. The melting is off the scale. And we see people that want to push rants of global cooling. I'm not an Al Gore fan, not an AOC fan, don't like any of the environmental groups. But again, if Al Gore said it's daytime and it's night, should we take the opposite position, even if it's not? So again, the bottom line is we need people to clear the preconceptions and ideologies and look at the data. Let me ask you this. There's probably not many in your circles that are really alarmed from a biosphere standpoint, is there?
I think there's not a lot of knowledge, but I think people are very concerned about the environment, that we have been poor stewards of the environment and that geoengineering is real. I think most of our viewers would acknowledge both those things.
They might, even if they acknowledge that, though, do you think that they feel there's an immediate existential threat? Would you say that that's a very...
No, I think that issue, Dane, I think that most people, even those that are very concerned about geoengineering and about the environment, do not perceive that we are at a precipice. I don't think that that's generally understood.
And that's so perplexing when we look at data, not speculation. An 80 to 90% collapse of insects right now. We have forests dying all over the globe. We have a 90% decline based on, this is all peer-reviewed study, 90% decline in plankton, no people in the Atlantic. That's 500 locations in the Atlantic, 90% decline. And you can find, quote, debunking sources that will deny all of this, everything. No matter how much carnage we see around the world, from aquatic life washing up on beaches dead everywhere, and fisheries collapsing, crops collapsing, we see staple items gone from food shelves already in California in certain regard. Mary, did you see the fog in California? Did you happen to catch that? So the whole Central Valley of California, the breadbasket of California, for the last 17 days has been under a blanket of freezing cold fog. It sticks out on a satellite image like a sore thumb. And again, above that, what do we have? Because I'm above it. I'm on a mountain at the top of the Central Valley looking all the way down the valley, and all you see is a blanket of fog every single day. And above that, we have massive aerosol spraying dispersions, and the temperatures are very warm, t-shirt weather, above this freezing layer of fog on the ground. So the atmosphere is stratifying, it's layering. Climate engineering is affecting that equation radically. The map you showed of what's coming for the Southwest in this record heat, we're in uncharted territory. I want to make that clear. We're in completely uncharted territory. And just as a reminder, we talked about this before, Mary, but you do remember the blizzard in New Orleans, January 21st of this year, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Blizzard on the Gulf Coast, blizzards in Florida, massive media headlines everywhere. Look how cold it is. They didn't tell us that on the same day, middle of winter, January 21st, above freezing and raining in much of the Arctic, Alaska, Greenland, Iceland, Siberia, above freezing and raining while there's a blizzard in New Orleans. So People need to take a look at the wider horizon, not just what's happening outside their door, and to look past the clear talking points you see on Matrix Media, Weather Channel, Weather Central, Weather Nation. They all parrot the same talking points. It's blatantly obvious for anybody who watches.
Hi, I'm Dr. Robert Young with the PH Miracle Living Center here in beautiful Valley Center, California.
For decades, my dad's name, Dr. Robert O. Young, has been synonymous with alternative healing. He was respected internationally as the PH Miracle Doctor.
A new book called The PH Miracle takes a unique approach to nutrition. I should say first off, tell everyone that I actually wrote the foreword for your book. You asked me to do that.
But when his unconventional methods came under legal fire, the question became, what happens when healing outside the system becomes a crime?
Well, Robert Young is a highly controversial holistic healthcare provider. He touts a non-alkaline diet and raw food, among other things, as a cure-all for many diseases, even cancer. Well, today his wellness center was raided by more than 20 officers, and he was booked into jail for reasons his attorneys say are unclear.
Young's attorney argues that state law allows homeopathic treatment, and that's what Young provided.
The state of California allows the patient to choose. In this case, what Dr. Young has done is protected by the statutes and the laws of the state of California.
Today, my father is behind bars, awaiting sentencing for the crime of caring too much.
So, Robert, I'm so glad that we have you on the phone. We've spoken in the past. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Better than I expected. I feel stronger. I feel healthier in so many ways. So it's quite interesting to me that I'm able to keep up, my health and my well-being, and so I'm grateful for that because I want to be healthy and continue my health. So, drinking clean water and drinking clean food and breathing clean air, that's my goal, just like Bobby had recommended for all Americans to make America healthy again.
So, Robert, we know that, you've been a practitioner and a healer of naturopathy, and you're now incarcerated in California in a prison for a variety of things. I guess since I don't remember exactly when you had to go into prison, but you've been there for a couple months. How are you dealing with being inside?
Oh, wonderful. They're treating me well, and I appreciate, their respect and the way that they're handling me. I've been now incarcerated for about 11 months, and I am hoping to get out as soon as I can, early next year if possible, and just put this behind me. It's
sure.
What Helen Keller said. She said, "A happy life consists not in the absence of hardships, but in the mastery of the hardships." And I appreciate those words because I look at obstacles and challenges and hardships as opportunities, to reach a goal. And that goal is the quality and quantity of not only my own life, but the lives of those who I love, my family, my friends, my associates, and the whole of humanity.
Sure. Well, that's beautifully said. I wasn't familiar with that Helen Keller quote. Thank you for sharing that. I understand from one of your colleagues that you've been offered an opportunity in the prison to work in the juice factory to make healthy juices with a select group of inmates. Tell us a little bit more about that.
My nature is to be productive in a positive way. So I enjoy working. I enjoy doing things and putting things together. And when I was offered this opportunity to work outside the prison, and work at the juice factory, where I've been teaching for close to 40 years the importance of juicing. And the reason for that is because many of us don't chew our food very well, and the juice is really where the life force is, the energy life force. And so, I had this beautiful opportunity that has been given to me to actually work hard. It's not easy work. We produce about 6,000 gallons of juice every week, and that is distributed throughout the entire state of California to all the different prisons. And so, I enjoy the work. I'm grateful for it. I appreciate the opportunity that Sheila Institute of Men has offered me here and the trust they put into me, because it feels like I'm leaving, but then of course I come back every night. But it's I just feel like I'm doing good, and I love the song. Have you done any good in the world today? Have you brightened anyone's soul? And I lived my life since I was 5 years old with that principle. It really helps me with who I am and from my, not just physicality, but my spiritual essence, to be able to do good for someone. And I know that juice is going to thousands upon thousands of people every week, and they get to enjoy fresh juices. And so I'm grateful for that.
That's fantastic. That's inspiring, Robert. Thank you. Have you found a sense of community there within the prison?
The people here, and they're here for a lot of different reasons. And, they can't believe that I'm 74 years old. They treat me like I'm a kid, so to speak. And so when they find out that I'm an elder, they respect that. And there's a lot of things that are respected by people here that are here, and that is to respect your elders. And so I'm really grateful for that, because it gives me a sense of security and protection, that regardless of what they're in here for, and we don't ask, that's good, but there's a respect for the elderly, and here again, I see that now the way the prisons are changing in their philosophy, that people are being treated equally, regardless of their race, and I think that's important, that we treat each other with respect, with kindness, and with equality. And I've always been taught that in my youth. I've always sensed that on a spiritual level, and I'm grateful that I'm seeing that in the China Institute of Men, that we're moving towards, respect on both sides. Those who are watching over us, and those within the system that are learning and growing and really making changes in their lives for the better.
That's wonderful. What else would you want to share with our audience, Robert? I don't know that all the people who would be watching this or hearing it will know your history, really, but what would you like to have our audience know that cares about children's health and about getting the truth out about so many of the toxic exposures that are causing harm?
Thank you for asking that question, and it's a very, very important question, because our children represent our future. We have no future without our children. They are the continuation of us. My greatest accomplishment of all my accomplishments is being a father, being a provider of a family, having a family, and having children that I love and adore. If anyone wants to know about me, I don't really like talking about myself, but I say, ask my children if you want to know who I am. Yes, I have the accolades of men, but, anyone can get those. Yes, I have doctorate degrees, so, I studied colloidal chemistry and nanotechnology, and I published papers. research papers, and I've over 3,000 now, and I continue to publish. And because of my concern for the children, I'm concerned about some of the symptomologies that we just can't ignore because they keep increasing in their numbers. And you know, Mary, what I'm talking about. I'm talking about a condition called autism. And this is my belief system based upon my research. I do not believe that it is genetic. In fact, I do not believe genetics determines your destiny. What determines your destiny is your internal environment, which I call the body ocean. And that is either healthy or unhealthy based on what you eat, based on what you drink, based upon what you breathe, based upon what you think, what you feel. It really sets the tone for your personality traits. And so our thoughts do matter. And so when Bobby made a declaration about making America healthy again, that resonated with me because I've been talking about this for over 40 years. And the reason I've been talking about it is I want people to understand that sickness and diseases in of themselves are only just symptomologies of the underlying cause and effect. And the cause and effect relationship is chemical and radiation poisoning. And Mary, I did some research over in London in the late 90s, and it was also published with the University of California, Berkeley, in the International Journal of Complementary and Alternative Medicine on the effects of electromagnetic frequencies on the human blood, on the human biofilm, on the life of that human. That was in 1998. This work was published, and it was peer-reviewed. And so I learned something about this. I learned that electromagnetic frequencies do affect the quality of our health. And it even compounds when we're dealing with our children who are developing. It's affected by that. And so I'm so glad that I'm hearing and seeing that restrictions are being put on the use of cell phones, on the use of our computer, you know.
Yeah.
Go ahead, yeah.
No, I was just going to say we're so grateful for your work, Robert. And in the late 90s, you were in the UK and learning about electromagnetic radiation and how significant that can be as a cause of dis-ease. Is that right?
Video was actually done summarizing this by the British Broadcasting, BBC, in 1998. My paper was published in 2001, so 2 years later. This was a study we did and carried out, which was double blinded, and I wanted to understand the effects of electromagnetic frequencies, and this was at 50 to 100 hertz. And the reason I say that, Mary, is because we're dealing with pulsating frequencies that are now in the megahertz, high megahertz, and gigahertz. It's called 4G, 4G plus, and 5G.
Right.
So 50 and 100 hertz, I was able to document the creation or the damaging of the red blood cells and the red blood cell membrane corrugating and giving birth to spike proteins. So spike proteins are born out of the cells due to radiation poisoning. I knew this in 1998. It only became a subject later, as you know, in 2021 to 2024, even now, speaking about spike protein. But I want to make this perfectly clear. Spike protein is a symptom of cellular breakdown and not the cause of the cellular breakdown. That is a very, very important distinction. Because then you have to ask the question, what then is causing the cellular breakdown? And the answer to that is a polluted environment of toxins within the fluids that surround the cell, as well as contributing factor of radiation that tends to megahertz and lower gigahertz range, which are called microwave, which is called microwave radiation poisoning. So I published a paper on this and disclosed it in 2022 in the ACTA Medical Sciences. I published this paper so people could be aware of some of the harms that chemicals, common chemicals that we've heard of, like glyphosate, that's now in our page, or aluminum, which we've been concerned about for many, many years, and is being found in many, many nutraceuticals and pharmaceuticals. And the list goes on. I've tested close to 30 different compounds that are now showing up in the body fluids.
Interesting.
So I want people to understand this. Very simple. You're not sick. You not have a disease. What you're experiencing is chemical and radiation poisoning. And Mary, our poor children, this is what's leading to increasing, of not only autism, which is rampant now, but also in type 1 and type 2 and now type 2 diabetes. So we have to be looking at the cause and effect relationship as it relates. Stop treating symptoms and understand the underlying cause, which can be dealt with once you have this knowledge. You can protect yourself.
Right.
That's what I want people to know.
Right. So is there anything else that you'd want to share with the public, Robert, with our audience today?
I don't know how grateful I am, for their love and support. I appreciate the many letters and cards and calls in my behalf. I appreciate that, very, very much. It makes my stay here go a lot quicker. So thank you for all the love that you all express and have expressed before, during this hardship that I'm having, which is actually, as I look at it, an opportunity to make me even stronger. That's the beautiful thing about this. I don't feel locked up. I would feel locked up if I had these challenges within me, because I understand it from Helen Keller's perspective and from my own research, that I can use this time not to become bitter, Mary, to become better.
Wonderful. Robert, thank you so much for sharing this time with us, and thank you for overcoming all of the technical difficulties to make this call happen. We're very grateful to hear from you.
Well, thank you, Mary, for this opportunity to speak with you today.
Thank you, Robert.
I visit my dad every week, and I can tell it's not a pleasant experience for him, but what's amazing is how positive he is. I think he's just so devoted to his calling that he has kind of accepted that this is an unfortunate part of that calling. That being said, I would really prefer that we could do something to help get him out.
I want all Americans, and eventually the world, to be able to have this freedom, to be able to choose the quality and quantity of their life and not be dictated by any pharmaceutical company, controlled university, or any government telling us how to take care of our bodies.
Through his unwavering courage and deep commitment to humanity, my dad has earned the love and support of millions around the world. As Tony Robbins eloquently states in the foreword to my father's book, Reclaim Your Inner Terrain, over the last 2 years, there is not a single man, woman, or child I have sent to Dr. Young who does not feel he has profoundly impacted the quality of their health.
Remember, it is your body, it is your life, and it is your choice.
As much as I long to see my father regain the freedom he so deeply deserves, I understand that this case is about more than just one man. It strikes at the heart of a much larger issue, the fundamental human right to choose how we care for our own bodies. If we lose that freedom, we lose the ability to think, heal, and live on our own terms. I'm asking you to stand with us and share this message far and wide, because today it's my father, but tomorrow it could be anyone who dares to challenge a broken system.
An incarcerated person at the Vista Detention Facility. This call is being recorded.
The safety that we have in all of this is the truth. Peace is our birthright and freedom is our destiny. The curtain's coming down on all this, and it's being revealed. And I feel stronger every day that is going to be the case. Great men like yourself, son, I appreciate you being courageous and standing up for what's right and what's true, and God's going to continue to bless you. I know that. And it's not just about us, it's also about the whole of humanity.
There is currently a push by the FCC and Congress to put cell towers everywhere. This is a fundamental shift from what telecom companies currently have to go through when they want to put a cell tower somewhere. These proposed rules would make it that much easier for telecom to put towers everywhere, in front of your house, on your child's playground, or in front of your child's school. Let me explain. When telecom applies for a cell tower, they have to go through a permitting process on the local level. People who are living close to the proposed cell tower sites are receiving notice, and they have an opportunity to voice their opposition. All of that will be taken away. Telecom has to prove that there is actually a gap in coverage that they are trying to fill. That will go away too. Local zoning authorities have the right to require certain things from telecom, including fees and proof that the equipment that they're putting in is needed and safe. And that will go away too. If these bills or the rules that the FCC is proposing pass, expect cell towers everywhere with no local input or say. You won't even know that a cell tower is proposed next to your house. So what can you do? Here are 3 things. Tell your members of Congress that you oppose H.R. 2289. Tell the FCC commissioners and your members of Congress that you oppose the proposed rules by the FCC. Leave an official comment on the FCC docket. All of this by taking our action alerts. We count on you to join this fight, make your voice heard, and share this information.
Thank you for doing this.
Yeah.
All right, we're live. Okay, tell us your name, please.
Rachel Byers.
And this is about your daughter.
Janessa Nicole.
All right, take us back to, let's talk about her health before she took these vaccinations. How was her health?
She was beautiful, perfect, healthy when she was born, vibrant, full of life, little spitfire, full of energy, just perfect. She was perfect. I was a lot younger back then, so I trusted the doctors.
So you took her in for every...
For this, unfortunately, I did for the CDC schedule.
Okay, so talk to us about the moment, if you like.
Yeah, I remember back then, it was just really hard because I remember red flags going off inside of me, but we didn't have internet back then where I could look for sure to see what it was that I was having these instincts about, that I just didn't feel like she was safe. And then I do remember her having a febrile seizure after she had the DPT, and she had an oral polio, and it was soon after that night that she had a febrile seizure. So at that point I knew that they were correlated, and of course the doctors just, no correlation, just happens, just give her Tylenol.
How old was she when
So she was 2 when that happened, and then I remember soon after that I waited. I made sure she didn't get any more for a few more years, and I think she was starting preschool, and it was then that I was like, okay, well, she's not going to get that many more, and again, it was hard to do research and trusted the wrong people. So
she went back in again for preschool, and what did she get then?
Yeah, whatever that preschool schedule was is what she got, unfortunately.
And she may have had some catch-up ones as well if she'd spent 2 years without vaccination.
I have no doubt they did that and tried to catch her up. Yeah, like you said, catch her up. And so it was soon after that she was diagnosed with rhabdomyosarcoma, which is a muscle cell cancer, which was actually very close to the injection site of where she got the poison injected into her body.
So what were the first symptoms that you knew something's not right with my daughter?
She was super healthy up until the moment where she just started yelling for me, saying, "Mom, there's something going on. Run in here." I mean, she was like, "Mom, please run into the bathroom with me. There's something in my nose." And she like spit out, and it almost looked like a bean, but it was like it was like a tumory type material that came out of her nose. And it was at that point, she was scared, and she was like, "What do I do? What is this? What's going on?" And I had no idea. I just knew I needed to take her in to just find out what's going on with her. But that was it. There was no other symptoms other than that. And so when we took her in, they were doing the biopsy. And then that's when all the doctors got involved, saying you need to rush her to Dornbecker's. And I didn't even have time to process what they were saying. Our whole world was turned upside down. I wanted time to look into this and find out we need a second opinion, and they just kind of swarmed in and did their thing with diagnosing, and this is her treatment. And it was very scary. It was really scary being there. It was awful.
You said they did a biopsy of what?
They did the biopsy of what came out of her nose.
Oh, they biopsied that?
Yes. Sure. And they said that is cancerous and you need to take her to Dornbecker's.
And then did she have to go through MRIs and all of that kind of stuff?
She went through almost 2 years of that. It was awful. She had to have a port placed. She went through a year of rigorous chemo where she lost all her hair, radiation, and there was a point where they said, "Oh, after a year, she's cancer free." So she was so excited, thinking she was in remission, and then they told her a couple months later that they saw that it came back in an MRI, and it was heartbreaking to see her so depressed, and she was so full of life and so excited about being free from this, because it was hell for her. And so here she knew what she was facing again when they said that it came back and it had metastasized over her entire body.
And how old was she at this point?
7 and a half. Yeah, because it was a year later. I'm sorry, that's not accurate. She was 8. Because then it happened soon after they said it had metastasized. Yeah, it was really, it happened fast. It was
from
awful.
That meeting when they said it metastasized through to her death?
What happened, she was very, very depressed, and she kind of went inside herself, and she wouldn't talk to us. Emotionally, she wasn't the same. So she was very, very strong, very full of life, and then all of a sudden we lost her. Emotionally, mentally, she just wasn't talking to anybody.
Did they put her on more treatment after that?
Yeah.
More chemo?
And it was at that time that I said I would like to take her to a different doctor, and I just ended up taking her to like different naturopathic doctors to increase her immune system. I felt like I was fighting against a system that wanted a certain way of treatment, and back then I was like, there's got to be another way. So I was trying as fast as I could to just try to find natural treatments, or anybody that, like Brzezinski. I remember, I was wanting to reach out to him, and there was all these ideas that I had to help her in a holistic way, and I got so much resistance from them, from Dornbecker's. They were bullies about all of that. And that was back in 2006. That was in 2006. They were awful then. when it came to you wanting a second opinion or trying to treat her naturally. I was able to get her into a naturopath, and they were able to get her on different things like glutamine and just, a lot of really good supplements to increase her immune system. But even then, it was such a struggle because the doctors were so adamant that, that's going to hurt her. That's going to, combined with the chemo, which is actually killing her. The chemo was actually killing her, and I could see that, and it was a very powerless feeling because I'm her mom and I wanted to protect her, I wanted to save her, and I'm up against all these people that just wanted to continue to poison her thinking that was the way to heal her. So it was awful. It was a very painful, awful time.
So you talk about her depression after the diagnosis came back. Did that lift again before she died or no?
It did. She was never fully back, but it did. She drew pictures, and after she drew these pictures she actually drew a picture of Jesus, and she said, "My King" on the top, and it was the most beautiful picture I'd ever seen, and she said, "He came and talked to me, and I'm going to be okay." And then after that, she seemed to be back to herself. I mean, not fully, but it was definitely more of her. So it was almost like she had some kind of peace, or he was with her. And that was what happened in that moment. And I'm very grateful for that, because I don't know how we would have gotten through that, trying to, find a way to heal her while she's also so depressed. It was heartbreaking. It was really hard.
Do you have any other children?
I do. I have 5 total.
And so how many did you have when she was dying?
Her 2 older brothers.
So were you all together?
Yes. And they really took a hit during this time. They didn't really have parents because we didn't exist. We lived at the hospital. We were fighting for her life. They didn't know they were going to lose their sister. They had no idea she was going to die. We just tried to stay positive, and she was strong, and we just really tried to make sure, kind of like trying to stay as positive as we could to protect them, while also it's that balance of being positive and also realistic. But honestly, no parent thinks that they're going to lose their child, especially like that.
And you believe that if she hadn't had these shots, she wouldn't have had the cancer?
Absolutely. I know 110%. After she passed, I took it upon myself to do whatever I could to study and be strong for her, to find out what causes a healthy child to get cancer. And that's when I found Mary Tocco, that's when I found Dr. Tenpenny, that's when I found Mike Adams. Back then in 2006, I was doing hours and hours of research, and that's when I discovered, and also I reached out to her pediatrician, who happened to be leaving the field because she said she saw too many children die from vaccines, too many children disabled, too many children getting autism. And she was actually a really amazing lady, and she felt so guilty about my daughter. She's no longer a pediatrician. And she said, "I know, I agree with you. I do believe that is absolutely what caused her cancer, was the vaccines." And just from doing all the scientific studies and the research that I did, and I actually was able to talk to Mary Tocco about what happened to my little girl, and she was able to verify, that those vaccines cause childhood cancer. She's actually who Mary Tocco? Yeah, she goes all around the world and does conferences on this, talking about how vaccines cause childhood cancer. And so my 2 younger boys were born at home. They're never, poison free, purebloods. They're very healthy, extremely healthy. They're never sick. I haven't had any issues. So there's a stark difference.
It's just such a tragic story.
It's been very, very hard, and especially me as a nurse, and seeing what I've seen and knowing behind the scenes this system that is pretty evil and what it's doing to our babies. And that's why after she passed, I was like, I'm going to be strong enough for my little girl so that I can expose the evil and make sure I can save as many babies and children as I can. And that's...
Are you still a nurse?
Yeah, I am, but I'm not going back to any of that kind of nursing or that field.
Were you a nurse during COVID?
Yes, that's what I was speaking about in there, was what happened during that time. because I left the nursing field after she passed. It was a very dark season of like 10 years. I was like, there's no way I'm going back to that. And then in 2019, I felt like God and my daughter were like, you need to get back in there and get behind the scenes and save people because you know the truth. And so that's what I did. And then little did I know, a couple years later, I'm behind the scenes watching this unfold before me, the same evil that took her. And I lost both my jobs because I stood up to them because they wanted to, you know, they were telling me to lie on the charting, say it's COVID when I knew it wasn't, because they wanted to be reimbursed.
When the person's died?
Yes, and these were my patients that I knew very well. And I had friends that were nurse practitioners. All their patients were passing from the COVID vaccine. They were passing from that, and they were asking them to also falsify charting, saying it's COVID. And that's what they asked me to do. They wanted me to take the shot. They wanted me to do the testing. They wanted me to administer those things. And I said, well, I can't really repeat what I said, but I said, no, that's never going to happen. I just mean I wasn't very nice to them about it. And I just, that was my line in the sand, was like, okay, I'm going to lose both my jobs. I'm okay with that. I'm more than okay with that. I took a Hippocratic oath to do no harm. So you go ahead and you fire me. So that's when I started my organization from the ground up. I built an organization to go into the homes of people that had COVID and save them from the hospitals, because I also saw what the hospitals were doing to people, because I had saved a friend in Washington from two of the most evil hospitals in Washington, and they put him on a vent, and I was able to save his life by warring against these two big hospitals. I got a lawyer involved, we got the people's rights involved, we got media, Stu Peters, and he did like a clip on it saying that this hospital is killing this person. So we brought a lot of attention to that both of those hospitals, and I know that's what saved him. So the people that I try to save in the hospitals here locally, that was really painful for me, knowing that these innocent people didn't need to die, because our protocol was saving every single person. There was over 150 people that were saved because we went into homes with ivermectin, HCQ, we had hospital grade concentrators, we had liberty-minded healthcare workers that helped us, like my liberty-minded doctors. Can I say their names? Is that okay? Julie Glass, she's here in Salem, she's amazing. And there was Karen, she's a nurse practitioner. So these amazing ladies, we were all working together, and they were prescribing the ivermectin, and we were getting these patients the right dosage, because a lot of them were sent home to die in their homes, young dads of like 4 children. There were so many stories where we got there just in time, and we can't get the help we need. They're sending us home. There's nothing more we can do. And they kind of knew they were going to die, and they had little kids. And so we were able to come in at that last minute and get them the right dosage of ivermectin and the things that they needed. So one, they avoided the hospital, and we were able to save their life while they were still home, which was amazing. But it's also very telling, because we don't have the resources or money that hospitals do. And here we were able to save. Every single person was 100% recovery. You go into the hospital and those people died left and right. They just put them on a vent, and some of them didn't even need, well, I'd say most of them, the stories that I heard from families, they're like, well, their oxygen was only 90%, and they'd still put them on a vent. I'm like, 90%? I saved a 92-year-old at 60% oxygen. How are they justifying that? It's because they were getting reimbursed for COVID blood money. Everybody that died on a vent, they were getting reimbursed for that.
Well, so we're finding that, from what we're hearing from the people, that the unvaccinated are put on remdesivir, vent, death.
Yes.
The vaccinated are on some different protocol, sometimes some remdesivir, but they never seem to die in the same way that the unvaccinated people have died. They might be sent home to die. We spoke to a paramedic the other day who picks these people up, the vaccinated only, and takes them home to die because they have turbo cancer or stroke or whatever it is. So what is going on here? What are we seeing here? We're trying to break it down. Where we see them killing the unvaccinated one way and killing the vaccinated from the shot and the treatment. It's like a most mass murder. And then you've got the other group, which is us, that did not go take the shot and did not go into hospital, and we're still alive.
Exactly. I can speak from just what I saw, and that was they had a vendetta against the unvaccinated. So the families that we tried to help, those patients that were unvaccinated, they had a vendetta against them like no other. They had a point to prove. And there were families in there that the patients were actually getting better because we were helping them with legal stuff. We told the families don't ever leave their side. And it made the staff so angry because they knew, one, they were not vaccinated, and that they were actually getting better and they were going to be discharged. So every one of those people, it was like they either snuck in some kind of medication, which has been proven because they were able to get their charts. So the ones like the patient I spoke of in there he was going to get discharged the next day. I begged the family, don't ever leave him alone. And they left him mistakenly. They thought the other family member was going to be there. They weren't there. So it was a mistake on their part, and the dad and the husband did not make it. And they found out from the charts that they gave him a lethal dosage of morphine and Ativan. And this is a very common thing that we found with these families that died. A lot of them were so young too. They were like 40s, they were dads. I'm just thinking about all these patients now, the families that we tried to save. It's so hard. It's so heartbreaking because it triggers me, especially because my daughter was on event her last day. They put her on event, and it's a very powerless feeling, and I couldn't save my baby. And so trying to save these patients was very painful because it was almost like reliving that. And I wasn't able to get to them, but 150 people are here today. Thank God.
Listening to you. Thank you for all the work you do.
Thank you.
Just one last question: who's behind all of this? Where did the memo go out to all the hospitals to kill the unvaccinated? Who's behind it?
I think it's a combination of the conventional medicine, pharma. Yeah, pharma is very evil, and I do not have a suicide mission. I'm not suicidal. I'm just going to put that out there right now. So if anything happens to me, but yes, they are very, very evil. They have an objective, they have a goal, and I think they've met that through the COVID vaccine, because I know so many people that have died. I'm sure the numbers are astronomical now, as of today, of the people that have died from the vaccine or maimed, disabled. So it's money, the love of money.
Well, we're going to put a picture of your daughter in this bus. We will never forget her.
Thank you.
Thank you for warning us about vaccine cancer connection.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
all you're doing saving people. Thank you.
And thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
This and all CHD TV programming is made possible by generous support from viewers like you. Please consider making a contribution today to keep our programming going strong. Thank you.